Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Listen and grow as Del questions the status quo, encourages you to think differently, and empowers you to make a better life. Get ready as Del challenges core beliefs, seeks the truth, and reveals the roadmap to the lifestyle you really want. And now your host, multi-millionaire, national award-winning investor, CEO and founder of Lifestyles Unlimited, Del Walmsley.
Welcome to the Del Walmsley Radio Show, where the hype ends and the help begins. I'm your host, Del Walmsley, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. Today is Tell Del Tuesday, and we have a wonderful guest, Jack Hildinger, out of Denton, Texas, who is currently in his waterfront property on the San Luis. Jack, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dale. Great to be here.
So you're living more than half the year at the waterfront property now, huh?
Well, we're just under half a year. We had 154 days this past year.
What does that feel like to have that opportunity to live that life?
It's amazing. It's like waking up and I'm not who I used to be. It's a complete transformation. I'm a butterfly instead of a caterpillar. I used to have to get up and munch every day and trot and work, and now I get up and I just decide what I'm going to do. Wow,
that's amazing. Well, let's take everybody back that's listening because they don't know who you are. Let's take them back to the beginning. Where were you when you first decided to look into real estate investing? Because I think you did some before you came to Lifestyles even, didn't you?
We did. Much of our single family started before Lifestyles, and then about 2016, we joined Lifestyles and learned better best practices, and it took our invested returns to a new level.
All right. Well, we appreciate that. Let's go back, though, and let's just talk about why you decided to get into real estate even before you found Lifestyles and got the better practices. What was it that drew you to this as a solution?
Well, Dale, I was a commission salesman for 34 years, and I was successful. I was good at it. But what I realized is that if you don't hunt, you don't eat. If you're not out working, it just all goes away. And I liked the work. I liked the hunt. But I realized I can't do this forever. And I saw old guys, not that I was an old guy, I was in my 50s. I saw old guys that just got kind of put on the shelf by the companies. And all of a sudden, everything they had built just kind of withered, including their reputation and their, they got old and they died. I saw this over and over. I just decided I had to have some way that I could grow past that. I didn't see that as terrible. It's inevitable. We change. But I wanted to be in control of that, of the rest of my life. And so we began investing in real estate.
What was your first approach to it?
Well, I had an unsuccessful swing at it back in 1990, and that involved pit bulls, non-paying tenants, police reports. It was a bad idea. So we got away and we didn't look at it for another 30 years. But when we came back with a mentor. He's not a Lifestyles guy, so I kind of hesitate to use that word, but he was a successful real estate investor and a realtor, and he says, you guys are smart. You guys, you deal with people well. You guys understand business and numbers and finance. Why aren't you doing real estate? Pit bulls. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with police reports and tenants, toilets, right? So he says, no, let me show you a different way. And so he kind of coached us through it, and I said, no, you're a salesman. You just want to sell me a house. You want a commission. I am you. And he's like, no, trust me. And so he was a friend, and he was a city council member in my little town, and he was a stand-up, trustworthy guy. So we bought our first property, and then we bought our second property within a couple months of each other. And by golly, we were in it. And we realized soon that we needed more tools. So I did internet education, and I began conversing with the Lifestyles radio host, both email and occasionally, I think in those days it was a call-in show, and I would call in occasionally and ask a question, and the host was helpful and encouraging. And I said, these are good people. About 2016, we had grown to the point where we needed some help that my friend didn't have. Realized he taught me everything that I know, but he didn't teach me everything I need to know because he didn't know it. So we joined Lifestyles, and it took our business to another level. It gave us greater control over our quality of tenant. It introduced the concept of the purple Martian and why we didn't want purple Martians in. And we just, we came to the next level. And that's where we were about 2019 when we joined the preferred group.
Let's cover that area a little bit more, because I think that's a very important factor that we don't want to go right over it that quickly. When you came in, and I'm talking right now, I'm speaking to all of you people out there right now that already have your foot in the pond. You already got your toe in the water. You've already got one rent house or two rent houses. And, maybe you realize you don't know it all yet, or maybe you think you know it all. Whatever it is, it's always one way or the other. But when you finally find something like Lifestyles and you come in here and you see the experience and everything, I want to just share, if you could, Jack, the first 2 day you went to, if you can. There's got to be an aha moment or two that goes like, man, you're talking to me? That's exactly what we're doing wrong. Do you remember any of those moments by chance?
Oh, I do. They're kind of burned into my memory. My first 2 day was in 2016, and we met David Fisher. And David is, for those that don't know, David is a really smart guy, but he has a way of bringing it to the level where it hits you personally. And he's a very successful investor. So I immediately recognized that this is not some dude that's just trying to follow a script. This is a guy that knows what he's talking about. And so all my barriers came down. And I'm kind of a spreadsheet guy, so I like to measure what we do, and I like to measure the results of changes or improvements and see how that goes. So I have a bunch of metrics on my I call it my spreadsheet to end all spreadsheets. It's got all my property metrics on one page. And the new metric that I learned that first day of the 2 day was return on net worth. And that kind of stripped my gears. I said, whoa, this is what I've been looking for. If I want to learn how to get a return on my money, I have to identify all of my money, which essentially was my net worth.
Let's talk about your portfolio.
Okay.
Let's talk about how you decided to work your portfolio. I see you've got some stuff coming in, some stuff coming out, some big capital gains on some of these deals, some of these houses. How did you manage to get yourself retired in that short period of time, really doing what looks like 11 to 13 single-family houses and then some passive later on? How did you work that?
Well, the ADU for me was the cash flow gold, pot of gold. When you buy a house and you run the numbers and you see that you can do an ADU on that property, if the numbers for the basic property work, i.e. you're going to get $400 to $500 of cash flow per month, then when you do the ADU, you can add another $1,000 of cash flow per month.
All right, Jack, you are now guilty of assuming that everybody understands what an acronym means.
Yes.
So why don't you go ahead and explain what an ADU is for them?
Okay, sorry for the jargon, but ADU is called an auxiliary dwelling unit, and it is a code-compliant method that cities allow for the creation of affordable housing. So I will give you an example. We purchased a 4-2 home in 2013 that was going to cash flow about $500 a month. Nice property. No, it wasn't. It was a property that needed some work, but we did the work and it became a nice property. But it had a 2.5 car garage. And in my experience, residents, they don't park their cars in garage. They park their junk in garages. And then they leave it, and I have to throw it away when they're gone. So we took this garage, 2.5 car garage, and we, using a code compliant, pulled a permit, we built a 2-bedroom apartment. This is a corner lot, so they had parking in front of the garage. They had parking in front of the house. We built a 2-bedroom apartment. We spent about $30,000 building it, and we rented it for $1,100 a month, which created another cash flow of about $900 to add to the $500 of the first house. So that property today, I still own that property. That property cash flows me based on my current costs, my new insurance rates, my new property tax rates, and the current lease rates. That property cash flows me $25,632 a year.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
I have
let me
three
ask
of
you
those.
this: when you built the garage apartment, we got to go to break. Take a break. We'll be right back with Jack Hildinger and the Del Walmsley Radio Show.
Teaching you with a roadmap to creating the lifestyle you really want. Keep listening. The Del Walmsley Radio Show returns in moments.
We sold one of my wife's properties and actually did a 1031 exchange, and we bought 3 brand new builds in Fort Worth. So right now, collectively, we have 3 of her inherited properties and then 3 properties in Fort Worth that we've done through Lifestyles.
And you turn 1 property into 3, tripling your cash flow.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well done.
Learn to increase your cash flow. Register for the workshop at lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com.
You're hearing the Del Walmsley Radio Show. Want more life-changing knowledge? Access our podcast and listen on demand at lifestylesunlimited.com under the radio tab. Now your host, Del Walmsley.
Welcome back to the Del Walmsley Radio Show. With me here today on Tell Del Tuesday is Jack Hillinger out of, his personal residence in Denton, Texas, but he spends half of his time down on the San Luis. Let's talk about this rebuild. Are you financing that construction?
Initially, no. Initially, I'm paying that out of my pocket, but then we do a refinance later. In essence, I'm my own hard money lender on these things.
I assume that the appraisal then is bringing both the house and the garage apartment together as to one value. Am I right on that or not?
It is. That is the case. There has been an evolution. When we first did this, I tell you, so I've refinanced that property that I mentioned. We've refinanced that twice, cash out twice on that property. I don't have any money in that property. It owes me money, or I owe it money. So the first time we cashed out, the appraiser says, "Well, you've got 865 square feet of space out here, but you don't have a garage. So I'm going to take away, because this property doesn't have a garage, and I'm only going to add 20% of the value of this." I'm like, dude, it's got tile and granite and stainless steel. It's beautiful. Yeah, but I just don't know how to deal with this in my head. I said, well, it's square footage. Anyway, so he fought us, and I felt like we got treated poorly. But that was the state of that industry. That first refi, look at my spreadsheet in all spreadsheets, that first refi happened in 2018. And the second refi, we were able to push back, and it's become an accepted practice now, and we got much better value. So we were much happier with that.
So let's dig into this for a second, Jack, because the point you're bringing up is valid to some extent, but it's also invalid on another extent. And let me explain to you what I mean. Single-family housing is appraised by comparative market analysis. You have to be able to find comps to be able to give it value, right?
Yes.
What you're looking at it as an investor, when you add this additional income as an income-producing property, it should be worth more. Unfortunately, single-family properties are comparative market analysis appraised. So you're running. That's what you're bumping up against. Are there anything else out there that prove out that your value is that high? So I understand the problem, but you say they're starting to give it more credence for the upgrade.
We actually did on the second refi. We actually did say we reject that, and we're going to go to some sort of arbitration, and they refunded our money. The appraiser said, "I don't want to deal with this. Here's your money back," and they put us in the next. We don't get to pick our appraiser, but we can reject one we found. So we basically said that's not going to work. We're in charge here, and we got a different appraiser, and that appraiser was very favorable, and it is a comp system, but there is a little known and little used process where you can pay an extra fee for an income-based appraisal. It's possible, but appraisers are very squeamish. They're very squeamish. We've only pulled that off once. They just look at it, and in this process, you have to give, document taxes, insurance, leases, verified with bank deposits, and I mean it's a big deal, and they just really are afraid they're going to get defrauded, and that they'll be on the hook for a problem with a loan. So that is out there, and I suspect in the future that will become more tenable for them. But right now we're primarily just using the standard comp system, and then they have to make adjustments. They get their comps, they have to make their adjustments. For example, the guy said, well, you have no garage, so I have to take off the value for the garage, but you have this extra living space. If he had just given us full value for the living space, then we would have been fine. And
well, the simple math is to say I'm adding 1,000 square foot at $200 a square foot, right? So there's that value, but I lost 1,000 square foot at $50 a square foot because there's nothing in it. It's a shell. So that should be simple enough to do, but I understand what you're saying. Appraisers are always afraid of getting sued, so are mortgage companies, and all white-collar crime is rampant out there. Let's talk about how many of these things you've done. You like these. They seem to have bolstered your income. How many of these have you actually done?
I've done 5 of them. We currently have 3. We've sold off a couple, and those were sold to other investors. They weren't sold to a young couple that want to pay their mortgage by renting the house in the back. That has not been the market. The market has been other investors that they run the numbers and they say, wow, we can make a lot of cash flow on this. And so
it's interesting, Jack, that actually would be an incredible thing for a young couple to buy, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, this concept of that people have, they're going to rent a room in their house. Oh my God. I'd never consider that. You don't know if you got even if you run a background check, you don't know if you've got a future axe murderer, right?
Yeah.
Or rapist, or someone that'll just eat all your pudding. all of those things would be awful. So this is much better than having a roommate situation. They have separate heating. They have separate billing for the utilities. They have separate control over the temperature. They have their own appliances, and so it's literally you don't ever have to really cross paths with people.
What else have you done? What were your other, as we're talking about your portfolio, what other things have you specialized in to build your portfolio to where you can retire and the wife retire? That's, getting both people retired is the real creme de la creme.
Well, I was still in my job, and I had two properties, one of which I had created the ADU, the auxiliary dwelling unit. And I was pretty proud of my cash flow on those two properties. And I had a terrible boss. The guy was what other kind of boss is there? If you don't want to have a boss, every boss is a terrible boss. And anyway, this guy, he said, "Oh, I've had to approve a couple of inquiries on your income. I know you're buying rental property. Hey, I've got rental property. I could coach you on that rental property." I said, "Okay, that doesn't sound good." That really didn't sound like a good idea. He said, "I've got a bunch of rental property," and he said, "I'll tell you what, I don't make any money on it, but I haven't paid taxes in several years." And I said, "You don't make any money? No. You don't have any cash flow? No. Well, maybe I should mentor you." He really didn't like that. But I was, on these two properties, I had about $25,000 of cash flow in those days. And I said, if I repeat this 4, 5, 6 times, I'll have all the money I need.
3 rules of real estate. Number 1, stop losing money, get out of the stock market. Number 2, there's got to be cash flow, which you've already brought up. And number 3, you can't get rich slow, which means, wow, what happens when those capital gains start coming around? And explain to people how those big capital gains changed your approach to what you were doing.
Well, we made the decision in 2019 to begin investing in multifamily, and we began selling some single-family properties. And we kind of took the approach, let's sell the property that has the best equity to cash flow ratio. In other words, let's trim our cash flow as little as possible while also increasing our yield from the sale as much as we can. So we began selling off properties. First property we sold for this was my second residence. I sold my original home, bought a residence that we lived in that was a downsize, and then when we bought a new home, we made that a rental. So we sold that property and we cashed in some money, and that was our initial investment into multifamily. And because we had lived in it 3 of the last 5 years, we owed 0 capital gains on it. It was treated as a primary residence. But now we've been selling some single-family homes, and we've ended up owing a little bit of capital gains, very low numbers. Now, let me regress. I haven't paid or owed income taxes for the year 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. So I had a nice lifestyle, and I owed the government nothing under their rules. So that was awesome. And as we began selling additional properties and moving into multifamily, we had the accelerated depreciation from the multifamilies we had purchased so that we could offset some of those capital gains. It's very effective. The tax year before last, I would have owed $27,000 on capital gains had I not had the offsets from our multifamily purchases. Instead, I had paid about $6,000. So I made $21,000 on multifamily just by not having to owe it to the IRS. And that has been the case as we've sold each property. The multifamily depreciation has grown, and that has limited the amount of taxes that we have owed for selling these properties. Some of these properties, we're having a couple $100,000 capital gain on the property. And, you could owe up to 20% of a portion of that under the current tax laws. But we haven't had that situation. We've paid very little taxes still selling our single families.
I'm looking at your notes here, and I'm seeing $750,000 worth of capital gains coming out of these single-family houses you're selling. So that is quite a bit of gain. Like you said, though, when you first started buying these, you never even thought about that, did you?
No. In fact, we just kind of assumed there would be some growth in the value. Real estate appreciates over time, and we knew that we would pay down our loan proceeds. Of course, we've been in the refi business as well, so we still owe money on the houses. We intend to owe money on the houses. That's how we leverage our gains, by limiting how much we have cash invested in these. So we've done very well with this. The first year I invested in multifamily, I was going to invest in 5 properties, but after the heart attack, one of those properties became my beach house. And by the way, there's a pod of dolphins, of about 6 dolphins out in front of me right now, 200 yards away. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking at it in Facebook right now, man. It's beautiful.
Yeah, there you go. It's a great place. And you told me, we talked before about this, and you told me one of the most important things in life is where you wake up every morning, where you lay your head, and where you wake up the next day. And you're right.
It's an amazing difference, isn't it? You can have a lot of toys and a lot of stuff and a lot of, bling bling and whatever. But when you wake up every day and you start your life looking out in the world and go, man, my life is blessed. It really gives you a different point of view. We only got 2 minutes left. Tell us where you're going from here, Jack. What's the future? Now that you've got it all figured out and it's working, what do you do with the rest of your life?
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to sit pat for a couple years on our single family. We're not planning to make any changes. We're going to let our multifamily investments grow themselves. The John Pry, never eat your seed corn. That's what's going on in the multifamily. We're just going to let that grow and compound. And when that grows to a point that we're more comfortable, we'll continue the process. What I don't want, I'm 64 now. What I don't want is to say, well, if I suffer a few years now, I can make big gains in the future. Well, I think I'm past that. I need to steer a steady course so that my gains are effective and my gains are massive, and that I can just I can take these 2 arms of income and do what I need to do. It also keeps the bride comfortable.
Well, there's different points in your life, and there's accumulation mode where you're trying to get ahead, and then there's being successful, and that's where you're at. So congratulations. Thanks for coming on, sharing your story. And the rest of you out there, remember this, it's not just money, it's a lifestyle. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow.
The information and opinions you hear on the Del Walmsley Radio Show are those of the host, Del Walmsley, his guests, and his callers. The Del Walmsley Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Del Walmsley Show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or securities.